All right, good morning everybody. My name's Daniel Green. I am the CTO of WikiStrat, and we are the world's first massively multiplayer online consultancy. And we do crowdsourced consulting. So today I'm going to talk to you a little bit about gamification. I'll give you a brief primer for some of the key concepts for those of you who aren't familiar. And then we're going to step through a couple of ideas for how you can apply gamification to some of the Atlassian tools. And I'll use WikiStrat as a case study so that you can see how we've integrated it ourselves. So just to get started, what is WikiStrat? What is crowdsourced consulting? So WikiStrat brings three things together. That is a methodology, a community, and a platform in order to conduct war games, scenario forecasting events, futures exercises, and stability monitoring for a range of governments and multinational corporations. So the methodology allows us to very quickly extract insights from a range of incredibly motivated analysts who are based all around the world logging into our wiki platform. Those analysts come from all walks of life. They come from former ambassadors, four-star generals and admirals, down to bright PhD candidates and postdocs at the beginning of their career. And so one of the things that's really important when you start to think about a community that diverse is how can you start to put some sort of common language in place that really motivates them to work as a team? How can you find things that bridge cultural and experience gaps? And for us, one of those key concepts was gamification. So we use gamification in a couple of different ways. And one of the key ideas is that the way in which we actually pay our analysts is through both a revenue split and a series of prize pools for participating in each simulation, in each forecast that they're a part of. And that means that from the get-go, our analysts understand that their interactions with WikiStrat take the form of being in a gamified environment. That is delivered to both our analysts and our clients on Atlassian's Confluence. So we've taken Confluence, we've used it as a platform, and then we've taken advantage of the plugin architecture and we've extended it. And for those of you who are here from the developer side of things, if you start to look at some of the options available to you in the cloud offerings and the plugin SDK, extending Confluence is very easy. And it really gave us a rich platform in which to develop an entire gamified analytical platform on top of. And so that allows us to deliver a range of products and services where not only our analysts are able to collaborate on the platform, but our clients are able to see the projects happen in real time. So one of the big problems that you often have in consulting is the whole process is like a black box. People can't really see what's happening along the way. You give the consultancy a problem and they come back a few months later and they give you the answer, and if it's wrong, we recalibrate, we start again. When you do the process on a wiki, you have the ability for the client to watch all the work happen in real time, make comments, give feedback, really take advantage of that collaboration environment. And as I said, gamification for us is really some of the grease that makes the wheels spin. So who here in this room is familiar with gamification, has seen it in action, has worked with it before? Okay, great. So a small group of people. So I'm just going to start with a couple of the basics. What is gamification? In really simple terms, gamification is the idea in which you take some of the things that make games fun, motivating, and engaging, and you put them into business practices. So instead of slaying dragons on a game field, you understand some of the mechanics and reward mechanisms behind what makes that activity fun. And if you get it right, you can actually bring it into the business environment and take some of the same benefits. And part of how that works is through dopamine. So you can see the symbol for dopamine up on the slides. Your brain, as a reward, gives you dopamine when you achieve something in real life. And scientists have discovered a long time ago that one of the benefits of computer games is actually slaying the dragon, completing a level, earning gold, joining a guild, often triggers that same dopamine response in the brain. Now, this is something that a lot of healthcare professionals, for example, are taking to heart now with trying to gamify healthcare, for example. And so we've applied that to the wiki. And we've applied that using two very simple sets of principles. For those of you who came to the summit today by air travel, you've quite possibly already involved in one of the biggest sets of gamification that exists in the world, which is the frequent flyer system. And because that's something that so many of you are probably familiar with, what I'm going to do in a minute is I'm going to show you how airlines around the world are secretly gamifying your experience in the form of their rewards programs. But before we start there, I just want to divide all the people you interact with or all the users of your wiki into 4 groups of people. So this diagram is called Bartle's player types, for those of you who want to look up the research. And it says that there are 4 types of players in any given system. There are killers. These are the people who are motivated by how they interact with other people in the system. What they mostly care about is how they appear in relation to their peers. You have achievers. These are the people who are interested in getting the most recognition for their actions. You have explorers. These are the people who are interested in discovering what the largest number of possibilities for interactions are, all the hidden features, the secret menu, so to speak. And then you have socialites, people who engage with your system because they see it as an opportunity for increased social interaction. And we're really going to focus on those first 3 types. So game mechanics is the bread and butter of how people interact with any gamified system. Points, badges, leaderboards. And the easiest and most famous example I can use for that is Foursquare, or at least the old Foursquare before they dropped all of these things about a month ago. So what are points, badges, and leaderboards actually doing? They're attempting to shape behaviors, plain and simple. If we take the example here on the screen, when it comes to points, the system is saying, this is what we value as your interactions. And so we'll give you 8 points for actually interacting with the system and 3 points for this being a regular check-in, and these are the basic behaviors we'd like to shape. Badges are advanced interactions. It might require multiple steps. One of the first badges that Foursquare put out was called Far, Far Away. And if you went all the way past the midpoint of Central Park in New York and checked in anywhere, you got the Far Away badge. If you checked into 3 bars in the space of a week that all happened to have a photo booth, you got the photo badge. So badges are a way of rewarding users for advanced behavior. So if we think back to the player types, our achievers are really motivated by earning as many points as they can get. Our explorers are really motivated by finding what all the badges are, especially the ones you haven't told them about. And our killers are also motivated by both of the above, but mostly just so that they can be better than their peers when the leaderboard comes out. It's just a way of reinforcing that behavior. So now you have people interacting with your system. It's time to implement the most important part. How do you reward them? So the acronym below is SAPS, S-A-P-S. It's really important that you think about these 4 things in this specific order, because this is the order in which humans have time and time again shown themselves to value the sorts of rewards they can be given. Which means that I'm telling you right now, things that you can give people that increase their status will be viewed more highly than handing them stuff. And we'll talk about it in a minute, but the worst thing you can do is just hand people money. So let's think back to the frequent flyer program. The holy grail of people who travel a lot is to get the top tier status with an airline. They want the card so that they can flash it around at the airport. They want the baggage tags so as they walk from the carousel, everyone appreciates that they're more important to the airline than anyone else around them. They want their letter with the statement of their points to have a different color. They want their emails to be different. They want to be constantly reminded that they are better than everyone else in the program. One of the most important things that any company can do when trying to take benefit of the principles of gamification is take advantage of status. And that is as simple as Employee of the Month and a photo of the wall of your company, where for 1 month someone appreciates that all the work they did gave them a higher status than anyone else around them. Next is access. Access is literally being able to get into places that other people can't get into. In the frequent flyer program, that's the airport lounge. That is a benefit given to people who do one of the following 2 behaviors that the airline would really like you to do. 1, buy a business class or first class ticket. Or 2, fly so many times that they'd like you to access the lounge anyway. You'll notice that lounges are often put in fairly visible places because the airline would like to reinforce your status, to make sure that you walk in front of everyone else to get into the lounge. So a lot of you might not know that for the first few decades of aviation, business class was at the back of the plane. They boarded business class first. When everyone was settled, they boarded economy class. They eventually moved that around because they realized that what was really important for both the airline to sell more business class seats and for the business class travelers was that your status as a business class traveler be more visible. So they switched it around. They try and get the business class travelers to all load the plane before the economy class passengers, and they rush to give you a drink. Because it's really important the economy class passengers, as they slowly amble down the aisle, knowing that they won't get a glass of water for the next 45 minutes, see the business class passengers drinking champagne and laughing at all their legroom. So, status, access, then power. The ability to do things that other people can't. Take extra bags without paying for them. Get on the plane ahead of time regardless of where your seat is. Be able to take a reward flight on Christmas Day. It's another way of reinforcing the idea of status, but giving someone a practical benefit. Now, why has access and power come first? Because what does that cost the airline in real terms? Very little. But more importantly, when we talk about stuff, we reach one very simple problem. See, I can value stuff. I can figure out what a bottle of wine is worth. I can figure out what a free dinner is worth. So if you give people money, or something that they can directly translate into money, the first thing that they can do is they can start to go, well, I spent 30 hours working on this project and I got one bottle of wine which was worth $30. Okay, so I just earned $1 an hour for my extra time. If you give people the opportunity to have a glass of wine with the CEO of your organization, suddenly it's not so easy to value what that wine is worth. And I can tell you that most people would rather take a glass of wine with the CEO than just a bottle of wine that they can take home. But as we go through, it's always about trying to give people benefits and values that don't necessarily have a monetary value, so that they're not suddenly calculating how many hours went into a project. They're merely enjoying a reward that preferably has an intangible value that thanks them for their participation in the game. So how can we apply these ideas to the Atlassian tools? Well, I'll take this using a leveled approach. Here's the first and easiest. If you go into the Atlassian marketplace right now, there are a number of plugins that allow you to add gamification to your instance. Some of these plugins have actually been open sourced, so I know at least one or two of these you can take the source code and you can use it as a launching point to build something yourself. But there are plugins that you can use right now. One of the most common ones for those who want to ask me questions after this session is Confluence Questions. For those of you who've interacted with it, you'll note that you actually earn points for getting involved in the system, that there's a leaderboard, that they're already applying the principles of gamification to people contributing content to the system. Another really simple way that a lot of people don't think about is that if you're using Jira, you can effectively take the Java query language, and right now you can start to run queries that would allow you to form a leaderboard. I understand that it doesn't look as pretty, and I understand that it isn't as integrated, but you can do it right now. You can take the results, you can put them in the spreadsheet, you can start to come up with a prizes system. You can actually take some basic advantages of gamification using Jira right now, 30 seconds, and you can start to work from there. Similarly, Confluence has a plugin. For performance reasons, it's disabled by default, so a few administrators are now going to try and kill me. That will give you space reports, that will tell you who the most active contributors are in different spaces, that will give you the opportunity right now to start to identify people in the system. Now, with all good games, there are ways to cheat the system. You can start saving and editing a page after you change every word. Still, it's a basic start. I can see a few people here figuring out how they're getting a glass of wine. It's a basic start as to how you can take advantage of metrics right now. So how did we do it? This is the slightly more complicated part. I just want to give you the way in which we thought about gamification and applied it to the platform we built on top of Confluence. Because Confluence itself is really ripe for people being able to interact with the system and take additional benefits to try and give people rewards that's more than just knowing that they've edited the page. So actually, the first step we went through, and this is something that requires almost no technical proficiency, people can do this right now, we just scanned the database once a minute and we just kept a tally of how many times people were editing pages. We had a scale. We said that people maxed out each day after they edited, I think, 20-odd pages. That was to prevent people from doing 300 edits on the first day of the week and then settling back. They hit each day, we were just stopping people from gamifying the system. We put a leaderboard on, and I can tell you that there was instant success. One of my favorite stories is a retired admiral from the US Navy, joined WikiStrat, started working on a project. He sent an email to the leadership saying, I find the points system to be both childish and annoying, and I really appreciate if you guys would turn it off. I'm a retired admiral, I don't play games. It was maybe 2 weeks before we got an email saying, you know, I did a lot of work last night, and I don't think I got nearly as many points as one of my colleagues. And I'll be quite clear in that he didn't beat me when we were studying at Harvard, and he's sure as hell not going to beat me now on the wiki. So I promise you that it works across all age groups. When we started to extend things, what we basically started to do was extend the script so we were simply categorizing points. And I'll come to in a minute how you can take advantage of some of this. But what we were effectively doing is we were just starting to separate out by tracking how many times people did commenting and editing. And for those of you who are looking at the slides, you can see that we actually started to track a couple of offline metrics. So if people let us know that they'd been mentioned in the media in conjunction with our brand name, we gave them points. We ran different competitions so that people who were more interested in being involved in the expansion of our community also had the opportunity to participate just as much as people who wanted to get involved through comments and editing of pages. Once this started to seep through the community, what we really understood was that people started to understand that gamification was at the heart of their interactions. And there were people who were interacting with the wiki and were interacting with the system because they took enjoyment from the social aspect that would come out of it. So we held a meetup in DC after the gamification system had been running for only 6 months. And admittedly, the majority of people who showed up were in their 20s and 30s. And as a joke, we said, let's start by going around the room. Everyone should say their name, how many points they're on, and their location on the leaderboard. Assuming that everyone would know their name and the other 2 values not so much. Every person in the room knew their name, which is a good thing, how many points they were on, where they stood on the leaderboard, and as people went around, someone would say, this is my name, this is my status. Someone else would stand up and go, I have not been able to overtake you on the leaderboard for 3 months, but at least I finally get to meet you in real life. And that really comes back to that 4th category of player, the socialite, and the fact that a gamification system is sometimes just an excuse for people to talk to each other and for people to have a different reason to collaborate across teams, not necessarily on the core mission that you're working on, but it gets people connected nonetheless. So that took us to the current version of the system. For those of you who know the Atlassian SDK, it's very easy to write something called event listeners. This is something that will just get triggered every time someone edits a page or fires a comment. It exists in both Atlassian cloud products and it exists in Atlassian server products. And admittedly, the way in which we've approached this problem is we now have a custom set of scripts that run our gamification system in general. However, there are any number of third-party providers out there now, very easily found on the internet, who have gamification systems that you can plug and play. And you can effectively just take these webhooks, plug them in, and you can start to have an incredibly rich gamification experience without too much work, or you can go all the way down the path of building something yourself. So I just want to share a couple of thoughts with you in closing. For those of you who want to embark on a gamification journey yourselves. Firstly, gamification is not an all or nothing strategy. No one in this room who now thinks that gamification may have a business value for them should walk away from this saying, until we can actually implement points, badges, leaderboards, the whole SAPS methodology, we shouldn't release anything to our users. You can start small, you can start simple, you can find some reason to start giving people points and tracking their progress today, and that's a great launching pad, that's a great springboard to doing something further down the path. The second, as we've already discussed, is be careful about giving tangible rewards. It's best for a lot of reasons if people can't calculate a reward in a dollar value, and that will lead directly to my next point, but people don't want to feel used. They don't want to feel that they can put $2.50 against an hour or $10 against an hour. That's not the point of the system. So try and come up with rewards that are intangible because it will actually make it more fun for people. And so that leads to my last point, which is everyone knows the difference between fun and fun. And if your gamification engine is purely an excuse to get people to work extra hours for free, I promise you they will know. And if your gamification system is just an excuse to give dollars for work, I promise you that people will find ways to cheat the system to maximize their dollar income. So really the first question that you should ask yourself when it comes to interacting with any gamified system at the design stage on day one is just how do we make it fun? How do we make it fun? And the business value will follow.